Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kyle. So I've started this channel to help people that are on their spiritual journey or are just thinking about starting their spiritual journey. I want to help as many people as I can with that. So with that being said, today's video is all about breathing. And I'm sure you've heard the concept of breathing and spirituality, or what they call breath work. So why is this such a thing? Why is this such a big deal when it comes to spirituality? Well, it's not just a big deal in spirituality, it's a big deal in general. So breathing is what we would call a life force. So as our human bodies need to breathe in order to survive, if we stop breathing, we no longer be. We no longer exist. So that is why it's considered a life force. Now, I can promise you, you do not go through your day thinking about breathing. None of us do. Breathing is something that happens automatically. It's something our body just does. It knows what to do, how to do it, when to do it. So as I mentioned in my last video, my background is I'm a registered nurse. So when we look at something like breathing, I want to kind of give you the physiological aspects of it before we get into the spiritual aspects of it. So when we talk about breathing, we actually talk about two different things. We talk about what's called external respirations and internal respirations. Now, external respirations basically deal with the act of breathing itself. So it is the act of drawing in oxygen through our nose and or mouth and exhaling carbon dioxide through our nose and mouth. Okay, so that's the external respirations. Now, the internal respirations deals with the gas exchange that occurs in the lungs. So without going too much into it, what happens is we draw oxygen into our lungs, okay? Now this is where our circulatory system comes into play. That involves our heart, our veins, our arteries, things like that. What happens is our body brings carbon dioxide rich blood back into the lungs. The carbon dioxide is offloaded into our lungs. That way we can exhale it and get it out of our system. As we do that, that carbon dioxide in the blood is replaced with oxygen. Okay, that oxygen-rich blood then goes back to the heart and it is then circulated throughout the rest of the body. Okay, that oxygen is utilized by our tissues, our organs, our cells, everything. Everything inside of our body requires oxygen, you know, to live and to be and to exist. So what I like to look at is when it comes to spiritual breathing, instead of just looking at it as an oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, I look at it as a light or good versus, for lack of a better term, black and bad coming out, okay? So when I breathe, when I go into like my meditations or anything like that, when I'm inhaling, when I'm breathing in and taking in oxygen, I actually imagine that I'm bringing in light, okay? Light and filling up my entire body all the way down to a cellular level. Okay, now we'll get into the spiritual aspect here in a minute. So why is breathing important when it comes to spirituality? Well, again, let's look at the physiological. When we're anxious, or you see somebody that's anxious, what's one of the first things you tell them to do? You tell them to breathe, right? I've done it in my own practice as a nurse. You know, I worked for several years in the emergency room, and I've dealt with a lot of anxious people. So one of the first things I would always tell them to do is breathe. Take deep breaths in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And I would do it with them, and I would show them how to breathe, and it would calm them down. Now, why does it calm people down? So when we breathe deeply and slowly, what we're doing is we're actually engaging our diaphragm, which is here, which then activates our vagus nerve. Okay, we're not going to go too much into that. We have 12 pairs of cerebral nerves that run down our spinal cord through our body. The vagus nerve is one of them. The vagus nerve uses a chemical called acetylcholine. Okay, what this does is it activates the calming response of the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so remember I said we would touch on this earlier. Now, we have sympathetic, parasympathetic. You see somebody that's anxious, you're getting, worked up, your heart rate's getting faster, your breathing's getting faster. That's the sympathetic nervous system, okay? That's our what they call the fight or flight response. Obviously, the opposite of that is going to be the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, this is our calming mechanism. So when we deep breathe and inhale slowly and deeply, what we're doing is we're activating that parasympathetic nervous system to calm us down. So when we breathe deeply and slowly, we also activate the hypothalamus, which is in our brain. What this does is it inhibits the hypothalamus from producing what they call stress-producing hormones, okay? Things that ramp up the sympathetic nervous system. So we're gonna stop it from doing that, from activating our sympathetic nervous system while we're engaging our parasympathetic nervous system, which is calming us down. Also, with the regular practice of breathing or breath work, what happens is we condition our brain. We build a new neural pathway in our brain that we can access during stressful times. So instead of, your first reaction during a stressful event is becoming super anxious, now we've created a new neural pathway in our brain. So next time we become super anxious, we can recognize it and say, okay, I need to stop and I need to just breathe. So that's what that does on a physiological aspect of things. Like we said before, practicing deep breathing slowly and deeply engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us, okay? So breathing in spirituality, what it does is it calms us. It brings us back into ourselves, okay? It helps us to connect on a higher realm, helps us connect with the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. It allows us to just be present in the moment, okay? So we don't have to think about our future selves and how am I gonna make this happen? How am I gonna make this happen? Things like that. It's very important to just be in the moment. And breathing helps us do that. As I mentioned in my other video, we're all made of energy. We're all energetical beings. We're all connected through energy. When we breathe and we do what's called conscious breathing, which is what we've been talking about, which is just focusing on our breath, this helps us to tap into that energy and to become connected with the things around us. Like I said, with the universe, with God, spirit, with our spirit guides, with the angels, whatever you want to say. Deep breathing helps us do this. Now, for me personally, breathing, for lack of a better term, helps my brain shut up. It helps me to just shut up and to listen. We live in a world that's just, we're flooded with stimulation no matter where we go, either visual or audio or what have you. It's constantly around us. We have our phones, televisions, computers, iPads, whatever. We're constantly being exposed to stimulation. So with that happening, it's really hard for us to hear what God is trying to tell us. Everything around us is just so busy, go, go, go. We need to slow down. We need to slow down and shut up and listen. So for me, breathing really helps me do that. Again, it brings us back into ourselves. It calms our mind, puts us in a state of stillness. And that to me is where we can hear God the clearest. So one of the things I like to do, I do this before I meditate pretty much all the time, is I use what's called I think they call it the 3-3-3 method or 3x3 method, something like that. But that's basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna inhale deeply to the count of 3. We're gonna hold it to the count of 3, and then you exhale to the count of 3. And then hold to the count of 3, and then inhale to the count of 3. Okay? So it may look a little something like this. We're gonna close our eyes, and we're gonna inhale through our nose to the count of 3. So we're gonna hold, and we're gonna exhale. And you're gonna hold, and now you're gonna inhale. And you're gonna hold, and you're gonna exhale. So that's something I do right before I meditate. I will do that for probably about 10 times. Now, sometimes it's less, but for the most part, I'll do that for 10 times. And it really helps you to become centered, helps you to bring you in. And you'll just reach a point to where your breathing then just all of a sudden slows. And it just kind of takes over, and you can feel yourself connecting. Now, it takes practice. Absolutely it does. But it's something that's hugely important. Now, you can use this outside of meditation. I do it all the time. You know, like I mentioned in my other video, I grew up with a lot of anger. And now when I feel myself getting to that point of getting upset, I stop and I breathe. And I do that. I do the 3x3x3, or whatever you want to call it. I inhale for 3, hold it for 3, exhale for 3. And I'll do that a couple times. And brings me right down. It calms me. It centers me. And then I can sit there and observe what triggered me, why. And then I can say, okay, I recognize it, and now I let it go. And then I'm not angry anymore. You know, it's something that's really, I think, super simple to incorporate in your practice, but I think it's very important to incorporate into your practice. So definitely give it a try. Try the 3x3 method. There's other methods out there. You know, experiment, see what works for you. You know, my method may not work for you, but that's fine. You know, you've got to find what works for you. But conscious breathing, focusing on your breath, is a huge way to bring yourself back in to awareness and to start connect with the universe. So guys, this was a short and simple video. That's all I got for you today. So thank you for sticking around. I truly appreciate it. If you could, please give me one of those and consider subscribing. So I will see you guys next week. Until then, I wish you guys nothing but love and light. Thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.